Okay, it is currently day 3 of my 30-day series of documenting my psychology and my trading, and today is going to be a pre-market analysis with trade recaps. But as you can see, it is dark outside now. So I'm going to be doing a voiceover for all of my trading. I have all of it live recorded. I was streaming live in the Discord, so we're going to go over it right now. Let's dive into the pre-market analysis. We see that YM is at all-time highs, so I'm just going to ignore YM. We have ES bouncing out of a 4-hour gap. There is a 4-hour gap right here that disrespected, but it technically can't still respect it. At open, I'm going to watch to see if this 4-hour gets disrespected. More so, this 1 hour right here, this small 1 hour, I'm going to see watch if this gets disrespected for longs, because on ES here, we're already pretty close to this equal highs and this equal highs. So I'm looking for a push out of that. And to add more confluence, if we drop down to the 15-minute, we swept this low and ES didn't, making a higher time frame SMT. And if you drop down to the 5-minute, ES also sweeps this internal low and NQ doesn't, making another SMT. And if we go to the 15-minute again, here is, this could have been a unicorn if this low was swept. So on ES, this here is a unicorn, right? Is that a fair value gap? It looks like it, but it's not. Let's see if we can find. So yeah, here could be the breaker. Tap down into it. We don't tap the fair value gap, but we're getting the breaker. Same with here. You could say like these set of candles here is a breaker, and we tap down to the 5-minute here, and we're bouncing out for these highs. But there's a 4-hour gap here, so the RR would have been not the best. Maybe, let me check. It wouldn't have been terrible. I would say if you took this, it's not terrible, but waiting all this time during London session and like close to pre-market, I wouldn't recommend it. And then let me see here. If we go onto regular trading hours, currently the last close price is at 820, and our price is currently 777. So we're lower. We're down like here. So there's going to be a big opening gap right here. So we could gap fill. That could be more confluence for us to launch through the 1-hour bearish gap. And we also have this bearish gap fill right here that we are currently sitting in. But yeah, also another confluence. So we fill the whole thing. You know, our target would be like 844 here. And then these highs up here as well. And I have this 1 hour marked out from yesterday still, seeing how this plays. Yeah, this 1 hour unicorn right here. And I'm looking for 2R all the way up here, but we shall see if it gets there. So yeah, at open, gonna wait for a reaction, see what market does. Maybe it sweeps this low. Maybe this is already enough of a sweep right here. This could be enough of a sweep, and we could just launch up, disrespect this 5-minute, and come straight up for 844 in like just a few candles. You know, we've seen that in the past few weeks that it's done that multiple times. So look out for that. Okay, so market just opened, and just like we said before in the pre-market analysis, we are waiting to see if price sweeps below or sweeps higher, whatever the reaction is at 9:30. And primarily, we're currently focusing on if the 1-minute fair value gap is being held and disrespects that 5-minute bearish gap, and we sweep higher to 799. And a good rule of thumb at open is to not trade for the first 5, 10, or 15 minutes. It just depends on your trading style and your risk, but it is better to stay safe and not gamble at open than it is to gamble and then sometimes win. Okay, here's a primary example of why you don't trade for the first 5 or 10 minutes of market open. Look how ES is making lower lows and tapping into its 5-minute bullish gap, while NQ is making higher highs. However, if we look closely, we can see that there's an SMT at the bottom. Okay, NQ is pushing back up past that level 799, and we're leaving 1 minute fair value gaps. Once those gaps are left, I'm looking for a retracement. Even it's pretty bullish, so I didn't expect it to come back down for this gap. I thought I was going to tap the one above, so I didn't set my limit. It comes down, wicks exactly where my entry is, and then reverses straight up and goes to TP. Okay, now this next trade right here is pretty risky. I sized down to 5 micros, and I'm looking for a continuation higher because of how bullish NQ and ES were. And you can see we tapped into the 1 minute fair value gap before my entry, and we formed a 30-second or 15-second unicorn higher. My entry is on like the 15 or 30-second fair value gap right there, and you can see it's also overlapped with the 1 minute. So my stop loss is below the low that created the unicorn setup, and I'm holding it through. And in my mind, I know that there's news at 10 a.m. So I'm waiting through all the way to 10 a.m. And you can see I closed out right before. And for my next trade, I'm looking at this 15-minute bullish fair value gap. I see that we dumped into it and we go into CE, or consequent encroachment of the 15-minute fair value gap. And here I'm either looking for a continuation lower, or I'm looking for a bullish reversal through this 1 minute fair value gap. As you can see, we make an SMT at the bottom, so I don't enter for a short. And I'm waiting here, closes over the 1 minute fair value gap, and I'm looking for an entry. I have a pretty big stop loss. I think it's like 25, 20 points, something like that, for a 2 RTP. I enter here. My stop loss gets moved to break even when the most recent internal high or most recent high gets swept. And you can see right there, we sweep the high. I move my stop loss to break even, thank goodness, and it stops me out. But what you see after this is that we dump all the way back down, and I would have gotten stopped out on this trade. So having a stop loss and set rules will save you. Okay, now after we see this dump, I'm looking at this 1 minute unicorn short model. This is when things start to get pretty cloudy in my judgment. As you can see, we already moved higher. That was my bias, right? My initial bias and my initial drawn liquidities have already been swept, and continuations is kind of a hard thing for me. And you can see up here, we're currently chopping, right? To me, we made an SMT at the top. We could dump back down, right? We're respecting the order block to the left after that dump. So for here, I'm getting in a short on the middle of the 1 minute fair value gap. And you can immediately see when I draw out that SMT at the bottom is when I realize I might be cooked in this trade. However, but I'm holding it. Every trade, I'm just accepting the risk. If it goes past a certain level, then that's when I put it to break even. If not, I just hold it for my stop loss. And here, I held it for quite a while, was up some profit, kept holding. I don't know why it didn't go to break even after, especially after seeing it respect that bullish 1 minute fair value gap. Why didn't I just close immediately? I have no idea. So I got stopped out.
I mean, it made sense. That's what we wanted to see. You're bullish. You want to respect that.
What the fuck? What
What the
the
fuck?
fuck? And for my next trade, I'm reading the news on that news channel right there, and China is restricting exports on AI chips. So in my mind, we're gonna keep dumping, right? I take an inversion short, which is not my model, so I broke my rules here, and I'm risking 20 points. I have no idea why. I I thought it was a good stop loss placement, but I should have sized down to 5 micros if I was gonna take this risky trade, and I get stopped out. And you can see I'm already down $716 because of that big $400 loss from the last trade. And this, I should have already stopped trading, but I have a bad habit of over trading. So here's another trade. Really choppy on the 1 minute, but we're making a 15-second or 30-second unicorn higher. You can see literally I enter, we break higher, and then I move my stop loss, and we immediately start dumping. So I got saved there. And now my next analysis here is I'm looking for this 5 minute rejection,
And you can see here that we go down into the 50% range or CE of the 5 minute. We respect it. We bounce out of it, and we're making a 15-second or 30-second. I honestly can't remember. Kind of all this. The charts all look the same. Structure for unicorn higher. I'm waiting for an entry here at 897. Why? Because it lines up with the breaker and a fair value gap. I typically do not like taking the fair value gap if it's outside of the breaker. And luckily for me as well, it has a 3 minute and a 2 minute fair value gap lined up on my entry. And see, I take it there. My TP is at 935. That is the last liquidity level or draw on liquidity that I have for the day. And on ES, you can see that we have equal highs for the current session. And as we watch this play out, to reiterate, we have a higher time frame 5 minute tap CE. Our entry is on the 30-second fair value gap, and it overlaps with a 2 minute and 3 minute fair value gap. And our confluences is that there is a 1 minute IFEG or BPR overlapped in the same area with a 5 minute bullish gap. And ES is also respecting its 5 minute bullish gap. And our draw liquidity is 25,935 for our daily high on NQ. And it's a 3.5 RR trade because my stop loss is at the bottom of the breaker low. I'm mitigating risk here. I would have had to risk like 20 points otherwise. And if it came any lower than that, I don't really see it going higher. So, and even though I'm already supposed to be done for the day, I'm up $34. I went back to break even, like 3 losses and 1 win. I take the world's stupidest short here for no reason. Take a loss. It was, thank goodness, it was like a 5-point loss. Okay, and then once again, I'm trying to get my green day. I want to make $100 for my green day to have 5 days of payout, or 5 days to make my payout. And I'm looking for another trade here. I'm looking for a long, because it inverts that fair value gap that I entered on, and we don't get the entry, so I'm waiting for another trade here. And here I'm listening to music here, but we make an SMT with NQ, and ES sweeps the low, but NQ doesn't. So I'm looking for a unicorn, and there it presents it on the 15-second. I enter, looking for it was like 25,900 or 998, because on the regular trading hours, that is a level which I'd never used, and clearly it doesn't work, or it just didn't want it, because we come up all the way, pretty much almost. I could have been green, and we dump right back down. Thankfully, I ended only like negative $35 for the day, and I left it at that. I was going to come back for PM session, but I had a lot of errands to do, so I ended the third day, or my first day, funded with negative $35.